Hi there, it's Harry here with the 53rd episode of this podcast, the Animation Industry Podcast. And I just wanted to take a second to say thank you so much for listening. If there is somebody specific you'd like for me to bring on, simply send me an email with your suggestions and I'll do my best to bring that person in. My email is terrystories@gmail.com. So I hope to hear from you soon. Now, this episode is all about how to become a CG lighting artist, what studios are looking for, what to include in your portfolio, and what it's actually like to work in a studio as a lighting artist. And who better to share all this with you than Michael Tanzillo and Jasmine Katatikarn, who together run an online school dedicated to teaching the art of CG lighting called the Academy of Animated Art. And just a little bit more background on Michael and Jasmine. They are both senior lighting technical directors at Blue Sky Studios and have worked on some of the biggest feature films, including Rio, Rio 2, Ice Age Continental Drift, Ferdinand, Peanuts, and many others. And I'd also like to note that if you are interested in becoming a lighting artist, Michael and Jasmine have put together a really great free guide called The 3 Expert Insider Secrets for a Successful Demo Reel. And all you have to do to get your copy is just follow the link in the description. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the chat. So, hi, Michael and Jasmine. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Thank you for having us.
Good. It's a pleasure. I've been reaching out to more people in the CG world because I realized that I am over-indexing in stop motion episodes because that's what I'm super interested in. So I'm really happy to talk to some lighting people because that's it's like a very niche thing and you know all about that. But before we talk about all the wonderful experience you have in 3D lighting, can you share how you actually got into this in the first place? Do you want to start, Jasmine?
Sure, I'll start. So how did I get into this? I totally did not expect to. I majored in economics in college. I know, right? So I, as soon as I graduated from college, and I will say I majored in economics because that was like practical, and I was like trying to do something that would make, my parents happy, and I always loved the arts, but at an early age, I was always told I could not become an artist because I would not be able to survive. And this is funny because my mom's a designer. So it was all from my mom, like basically saying, no, you should be a doctor or something, like that. So that's why I majored in economics. But as soon as I graduated, I was going to all these finance interviews and they were asking me simple questions like, so why do you want to be an investment banker? And I would just, in my head, I remember one interview being like, I do not want to be an investment banker. So that summer, I just decided, I'm like, this is my life. And I stopped going to those interviews. I decided to finally pursue my passion in the arts. I always did like fine arts and everything on the side, but I was never like serious about it because I thought I couldn't be serious about it. And that summer, I started taking classes in computer arts, like the very basic stuff, like Photoshop and Illustrator and things like that. And I ended up building a portfolio, and I got a job as a package designer for Godiva Chocolatiers. And I know, very random, but the teacher that was teaching me like the basic Photoshop, he was actually a 3D guy. And he just by chance one class, he's like, you're picking this up really quickly. What you want to see this? I think it was like 3D Studio Max. You want to see this? And I had never seen any 3D software before this. And I saw it, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I was like instantly hooked. I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I did a year of like the package design, and then I realized I wanted to go to 3D, and how do I get into that, right? So I decided at that time there wasn't very much out there, so I went back to school for it. I got my master's at NYU in 3D, I think it's visual effects and design or something like that. And then that's when I was like, there's a 2-year program. I was working full time at the same time too to try to afford it. And I graduated. I was like, okay, I'm ready to become a lighter, right? And I always loved lighting. And basically, I hustled and I did get my foot in the door, but I realized so many things, and we'll get into that later. But that was my path to becoming a lighter and into this industry. So you major in economics.
Yeah.
And a lighter.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to, so basically you grew up being told, even though you were interested in the arts, you were being told, don't go into the arts. Yes. So you graduated with an economics degree and were in the process of interviewing, so you're like this close to starting a completely different career and life path, and then you decided to throw that all away and kind of start fresh. What pushed you, and when you had zero support, like how did you find the motivation to really pursue this?
I know. I remember how scared I was when I did. It was. I remember the moment I was in. It was probably my third interview, and they were asking me these questions about finance and econ, and I had my BS answers, out. And finally, I just remember after that interview, I was like, I can't. Like, I just saw what my life would have been like, and I
Yeah.
was like, I just can't do this, and it didn't feel right. And I think what pushed me was like, no, this is my life. It's time to take charge. I was 20, like a little late, but I mean, it's never too late. But I was 21, and I was like, I'm gonna do what I really want to do. So I know in hindsight, I was like, God, how did I have,
Nice. That takes a lot of
do
guts.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it works. Like my parents are very happy right now, and it was the best thing that I could have done.
Awesome. So you're living the dream right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michael, how about you? Where did your path begin?
So I was a photography major in college. I graduated and I was working as a photographer a little bit. I was also bartending and just kind of making ends meet. I really love the art of photography, but when it comes to doing it as a job, I was kind of hating it. Like I hated doing events. I was doing weddings, and I hated getting dressed up nice and running around in hot weather and not being available any Saturday. And then like bartending wasn't great, and so and I actually and I was just kind of like looking for a purpose, and I watched Finding Nemo at the time, and I thought the movie was great, and I was enthralled in it. But actually, I watched the behind the scenes, and there was this behind the scenes footage of the artists for Finding Nemo scuba diving off the coast of Australia, and they were talking about how they were using light and color and design to set the mood for the film. Like when they were out more in open ocean, it was cleaner, it was brighter, it was rosier, and then as they got closer and closer to Sydney, they made it darker and murkier and greener, and to like really amp up the emotional, like the drama of the scenes. And I had no idea that was a thing that existed. I had no concept of like all the artists that went into an animated project. And I also was like, it was like, I remember just sitting on my couch watching and thinking like, this is what I want to do. And so I looked into doing cinema 4D on my own, and I was just kind of, and at the time I didn't realize how underqualified I was, but I did get a job doing 3D visuals for a book from an old professor of mine. And I just like, I had to do everything. I had to model, shade, light, I do everything. And it was like for 9 months, it was just, he was a robotics professor. So he was just giving me all these little robotics pieces and circuit boards and stuff. And he wanted me to model them. And I kept telling him, I was like, I'm a photographer. I could just take a photograph of this. Right? He's like, no, it'll be cool. It'll like be 3D. It'll be like super like in the future. It was like in 2000, I was like 2003, 2004. And so I was doing it, but like that rapid, like doing it over and over and over again. And the days were just flying by because I was just like working long, and I just loved it. I loved it. And so I started applying for jobs. And like I said, at the animation companies, and I was just so underqualified. I was so not in. So at the time, it was probably the same time as Jasmine. Like the only thing you could do then was go back to school. And so I did the same thing and, took out student loans and went to the Savannah College of Art and Design. And I only got in because the dean at the time was interested in getting photographers in. And I was like, well, what did you think of my 3D reel? He was like, you're going to have to take some prerequisite classes. But so I did that. And then, but I knew the whole time that I wanted to be a lighter. And then after I got out of school, I got a job offer at Blue Sky to be a render wrangler. And this was after like probably 6 months after graduating of not getting any offers. And it was just like I was in the right place at the right time. They needed render wranglers, and I was a person with a heartbeat. That's not me saying that. That was somebody else telling me that after the fact. But I got in, and I realized after I was here and I was doing this very technical role, and I was seeing the way the lighters were working, and I was getting, and we'll get into this more, but I was seeing what I was doing wrong, and I'm now like I said, and yeah, this is a dream job. It's everything that I've wanted it to be.
Excellent.
So I've been here for 11 years now.
Do you think your photography background really helps you when you're lighting and stuff like that?
Yes, yeah, yes. In that I can, because it was the interest in the way that light crafts the scene, and having an understanding of that. Mostly also understanding how cameras work and how like apertures and depth of field works, and how it's actually like a mechanical issue, and like vignetting on a lens, and like putting all of these photographic aesthetics into my work has helped a lot. But it's actually lighting for CG is very, very, very different than lighting for a photographic set, because in photography you're stuck with the constraints of what a light can do in the world, like the natural elements of a light. So there's only so many things that you can do, but in CG you can make a light do anything. So really it's much more like painting than it is like photography, because you can constrain a light to a certain object but not hit another object, but you have to do it in a way that's like all convincing. So in CG, once you get the tools and the understanding under your belt, you have full control over the aesthetics of it. And that's what I really like about it, is because you really have an opportunity to control the aesthetics and control the emotion of a scene, because you're not constrained by physical limitations.
Nice. Yeah, I really like that. And CG definitely lets you control absolutely everything. So let's talk a little bit about the school that you guys, or the academy that you guys that run. And I think it's really interesting because as like an outsider from how films are made right now, there's so many tiny pieces put together and hundreds of artists that make a film, and lighting is just like one component of all of that. So I'm wondering, why did you decide? Well, I'm sure the answer is a little bit obvious because you're both expertise in this, but why did you decide to start a whole school around lighting?
I can start answering that. Well, it started when both Mike and I, probably around the same time, were going on recruiting trips for our company and looking at student reels and whatnot. And we were seeing a lot of work. And then I personally started realizing that all the mistakes that I had made when I was in school, they're still being made. And we had a mutual discussion afterwards. We're like, no one's really teaching lighting. And I was like, I didn't learn lighting in school either. I learned what I know mainly on the job. And same with Mike. And then and we were basically saying like, there's all these other, schools for animation and whatever. And we were talking like, there's nothing for lighters. There's no one to teach how to actually light, because the schools are focusing on the wrong things. And that's when we were like, why don't we just do it? Because there's nothing out there. And we wanted to help those people wanting to get into the lighting industry, essentially what we would have wanted to have when we were in school, because we didn't learn it either. And I realized like all these years later, they're still not learning it. And no one knows. I mean, it's like this kind of dark, because there's not that much out there. It is a specialty within animation, but it's still like it's a big chunk of the pipeline that no one's teaching. So that's essentially how we started.
So if I get an animation degree and like specialize in CG, it's not enough to start it as an entry-level lighter?
Well, I can't say specifically because I haven't seen your work, but in most cases, I haven't seen that many places really focus on the art of lighting. They're focused on the software. They'll be like the way I was taught in grad school, and I see like in like online tutorials, it's like, oh, here's the software. This is the button to make a light, but they're not teaching you why you're making a light. What really makes a successful image? Or like, here's the button, do this, or maybe some trick like, oh, just make a dome and click on this this button and you're done. But like there's so much more to it than that, especially in like feature animated films. That no one teaches. So that's why we started this.
Yeah, that was the big thing for me when I was in school. I was like, if I just had the tools that they had at Pixar, Disney, or Blue Sky or whatever, I'm sure I could make work as good as they can. And then once I get here, I realized like, oh no, they don't. They're my tools are actually better. Like they don't. The software isn't different. It's the exact same, essentially the same stuff that you have that anyone has at their disposal. It's just that they have a mastery of the craft.
Yeah.
And they know how to control the image a little bit.
Yeah, so we wanted to change that. We wanted to give students and anyone wanting to get into lighting the ability to get to the knowledge before having the experience, because I learned on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the big things for me too is like I always think back when I'm working with students. I always think back to that time period of after graduating from grad school, before getting my first job, and just how stressful that was, and how like the emotional roller coaster of that. Like, you question your ability, you question if you made the right decision for your life, you question if you're good enough, you question, do I have what it takes to succeed in this? Was this, and looking back on it, I mean, I'm the same person I was then, but I wish somebody had come to me with knowledge from the industry and said, no, like if you just figure out how to do these things, then you can get that. Like, that's what you're lacking, right? Somebody who's been on the inside, you can see the work that I've done, you can see what was lacking, and could give me some guidance, because it's very isolating and very lonely, and I always think about that when I'm talking to our students. Like, I don't want anyone to have to feel that way again.
Yeah, and that's why for our programs, we really emphasize the professional feedback. Like, that's really how people grow, is through feedback. You know, I feel like we all have the thing where we create something, we're like, oh, it's perfect, right? Until, and unless you show it to someone else, you're never gonna grow. You're never gonna like get to the level that you probably want to get to. And that's where we really shine, and we give our students the feedback. As soon as they do something, we give them feedback, and they go back and improve it and iterate it. And before you know, it's like they have an awesome demo reel to get that job.
And we know how, like, the creative process is an ongoing thing, and there's momentum in it. So we make sure to try and get feedback within 24 hours for them, so they can just like put it, like, they post work to this forum, we give them feedback on it, and then they can iterate and get better and better. Because that's, as Jasmine said, through professional feedback from people who know, that's the only way. It's really the only way you get better.
Yeah. That's amazing, because when I post something and I want feedback, I'm so anxious up until the moment I get the feedback. And then when I get the feedback, I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Many things I didn't even think of.
Well, that doesn't go away when you enter the industry. I do that.
I know.
I have to actually be in the room with them when it happens. Like, and they're like, wait, why did you do that? Like, right, yes, no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, we get feedback every day, and we're like, okay, I'll go make it better.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, I think it's really cool that you're sharing your expertise, because you've worked at Blue Sky for a while, and they've made some amazing films. So I'm wondering, can you give kind of an overview of what the course entails? Like, where do you take a student from coming into the program, and where do they leave?
Sure. So our program is designed for anybody who just has like a rough understanding, a basic knowledge of 3D software. You don't have to have any lighting experience when you're starting, because, like we said, we know that schools and other programs don't focus on lighting. So we'll take you from where you are at the ground level. We have 7 different courses. We start off with a course that we call the Power of Light. That'll get you just kicked off on looking at light from an artistic perspective. We separate the hows of lighting from the whys of lighting. The whys of lighting are like the hows of lighting are like how to create a spotlight, how to change its value, how to change its color, that kind of stuff. Kind of like the intro, like base level stuff. And then we talk about why you light a certain way. Why would you position lights in a certain place? What is your motivation? What look are you trying to achieve? How do you achieve that look? So we focus on like looking at reference imagery and processing that and learning to translate that into your own work. And we focus on some of the basic core elements of a well-lit shot, which is creating mood, like I talked about, like the Finding Nemo thing, creating mood in your shot, creating visual shaping on your character. So there's dynamic elements within the character and within this set. And then there's some compositional things you do with light that you have to do every time, where you're getting the character to pop off in the background, or you're training the viewer how to focus on the right things on the image. So, and we do that in the Power of Light class with just some simple geometry, just to kind of get everyone's feet wet and kind of get them in the right headspace. From there, we move into some more specific classes. We have character lighting courses, environment lighting courses, because we break apart those 2 disciplines so that because they both are based on those same principles of shaping and mood and directing the viewer's eye, but there's different ways that you can go about it in both areas. Like for character lighting, you want to make sure you're hitting hero colors. So like the minions in Despicable Me have a very specific yellow color, so you always want that hero color to read throughout the film. Character lighting, you have to really communicate scale, like how to use depth of field, atmospheric far off, aerial perspective, all these different techniques to make a space feel large and vast, or very, very small if you're working on like a Lego movie or something. And then we have other courses as part of our, and all these courses are bundled together, I should say. I'll say that at the end. But we have compositing, because part of being a lighter is being able to composite your shots. And many studios ask lighters to be the shader and material artist. So we will give you that full skill set of materials and shading for the lighting artist. And then the compositing is great because that's where you like really add that final professional polish to your shot. That was something I never learned in school, was like how to give your shot that final look that makes it look clean and professional. We also know that getting assets is really hard, and the hardest one to get is animated scenes. So we have a course called Lighting and Animated Film that we give you an entire 7-shot animated short. It's all textured and ready to go and animated. And then we physically take you through our process of lighting that animated short from start to finish and teach you how to do that too. And then the last course in the series is Jasmine runs this one, and it's called Succeeding in the Industry. And it's like nothing else I've ever seen out there. It's basically all of the little in-between stuff that you learn, like how to interview, how to negotiate for your salary, like what are some inner office things you need to know, like all of this stuff that you learn on the job through experience. Jasmine did a really great job of packaging it together, giving it out. So you do have the ability to get each one of those courses individually, but we package them all together into our Lighting for Animation bundle, with the idea of being like, this is all the information that you would need to get a job in this industry. So if you don't want to like go to 18 different places, it's all bundled together. And again, like other than just the animated film, we've got assets to light. We want to be like the one-stop shop where you can go and get everything you need to become a lighter.
So somebody, I'm just thinking, a student, they can come in with no software. Like, do you provide student software as well, or do they have to have their own Maya or Blender or whatnot?
Well, the great thing about Maya, well, first off, our courses are not software specific because that's the way the industry works. No one ever like looks at your reel and goes, wait, did they do this in Maya or 3D Studio Max? Like nobody cares. They care if you can make a beautiful image. The beautiful part about the industry now is Maya has a free education version you can download. Like all the software that you need, you can have access to.
Nice.
And what else was that? I'm missing something.
That's it. We do have some partnerships to make it easier for students, and we always welcome students to reach out if they're having they want a software that it's particularly hard to get. We will work with them to see how we can help them get that. But
we have a great relationship with the Foundry, so if you need Nuke or something, we can work with them to get some student licenses or figure out a way to get something. So you're not, because they get it too. Like they get that you're still learning.
But
Awesome.
we give the students the flexibility to work with any software they want.
And
I love that. I love that you included the like industry insider stuff at the end. I think that's like really key because that information is really hard, like negotiating salary or stuff like that. It's also why I started this podcast, because it's like so tough to pick the brains of people already in the industry. While you were talking, I was envisioning like you working in a studio, because from like the storyboard process to like the animation, there's not much lighting going on in a storyboard. So are you working pretty closely with the director to figure out the mood of each piece, or like how does that process work when you're actually in the studio?
Well, so yeah, you're right. Like with the storyboarding, it's actually the art department creates color keys very early on in the process, while like almost as early as like storyboarding, I'd say. So, and they work with the art director for that. So it's mainly working more with the art director, the lighting department. But what we get as lighters are these color keys from the art department that they've worked with the art director, and we use those as reference. And it's the art director that right now we go to for the creative direction.
Mm-hmm.
If we have questions, or if there's always a little bit of change because as things organically go down the pipeline and the look it may be adjusted a little, but we work directly with the art director and the director. Sometimes it depends on the show really, and how the directors want to interact.
Yeah. So like, and when Jasmine was talking about the color keys, if you haven't seen them, like just Google color keys. They're so pretty. Like they're just, depending on they're just paintings essentially of the scene. But the notes that we get for our kickoffs are always like, all right, guys, this is a very action-packed scene, so we need to feel the drama, we need to feel the emotion. Or it's like these two characters are falling in love, so we need it to feel romantic. And this is roughly what we had in mind for it, but like it's our job to translate that, both that emotional cue and that initial vision into the final images.
Nice. So when somebody takes these courses, essentially they can come out the other end and have a demo portfolio totally ready to, start applying to lighting jobs.
Yeah.
Nice.
We've had many of our students, message us that they've gotten their first job in lighting. And it's awesome.
It's our favorite message to get. It's so good. Like one of my favorites are Eduardo and Elena.
Yeah.
I would talk about that. So they're a couple that were living in Spain. They were aeronautical engineers, and they saw NASA visualizations, like 3D representations from that NASA were doing. Like, oh, that's so cool, and they looked into it, and they realized they wanted a more creative field. So they looked into doing lighting, and they found us online, and they reached out to us, and they were like, hey, we don't really have any experience at all. We know like 3D a little bit, but like we've been playing around with it, but like we don't really know. We're like, yeah, we can get you there. And within a year of signing up for a program, we got the best email, and that was both of them.
Yeah.
Both got a job at giant animation studios as lighters, and we love, like, we've gotten emails from people who got jobs at DreamWorks and Sony and all the major studios too. But theirs was my favorite because it was like, because these are two people that like
totally different industries.
Yeah, from a totally different industry, different skill sets from one another, who are able to use our program. And like it's like, yes, it's cool that they got a job, but like I know that feeling of, and Jasmine does too, of being in a job or following a career path that doesn't feel like it's your purpose. It doesn't feel like it's what's right for you. And then getting that relief and that sensation of that exhilaration of getting your first job. It's so great.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I have a past career myself, so I know the feeling. But so I was just thinking, it's kind of scary for, I guess, so early on in your career to really specialize. Animation degrees are more generalist. And like Jasmine, you kind of stumbled into this, whereas Michael, you like saw one thing and knew right away what you wanted to do. So with the students that have come to you, other than the two examples that you just gave, where they just saw something and knew, at what point does somebody make a decision and say, I want to become a lighting artist? Like, if you're good in CG and you like, I don't know, setting up a scene or something, is that like a good enough indicator that this might be for you?
Well, for me, when I was in grad school, and I should say that I did work in commercials and visual effects in New York City for about almost 10 years before I came to Blue Sky. So I've been with the generalist type of mentality also to the like very super specialized, the feature animated folks. For me, I think when I was in grad school, I automatically gravitated towards the whole lighting and rendering because I was obsessed with the visual and the end look. Like I ran through the animation bit part of my like thesis. I'd be like, well, that's good enough. Like, and then I focused on the look, but other people.
It looks amazing. There's just no animation.
I know. I'll be like, you don't need to move it that well. But then other people are the opposite, right? They'll like focus like so much on the animation, and then they just don't like focus. They don't care about the lighting or anything like that. Yeah. So I think it's just naturally like ingrained. Like those people should become animators because that's where their passion is. For me, it was very obvious to me that my passion was towards the lighting side. I guess to answer the question of like if you're in school and you're not sure, like I do remember liking modeling a lot too. It was like between lighting and modeling at one point. I think the best way is, well, one, you don't have to specialize depending on what industry you're going into. Like I said, more commercial industries, they want generalists. But if you want to go into the feature animated films, you almost always have to specialize. And if it's not obvious to you what your passion is, if it's like animation, rigging, like I think wasn't there like an analogy like if you look at something, what was that?
It was basically like if you watch a film and you're inspired by it, like ask yourself what you're inspired by, because like most people are, if the answer is I'm inspired by the character's performance, then you should probably be an animator. But if you're inspired by like the look of the film and the color and the quality of the image in front of you, then you have the eye for a lighter.
That's a good way of putting it. I like that. Yeah. Like what part inspires you in digging and figuring that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you're doing your work, think about like, where do you spend the most time? Where do you love spending your time? Do you love spending your time modeling, or do you love spending your time like, animating it? Because you might not realize it, but you're spending more time in the areas that you really enjoy, and that could be like a good key of what you like to do best too.
I'm gonna put a stopwatch beside my workstation, and whatever I spend most time on, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the course and stuff, but I'm just wondering from like a practice perspective, what is the mentality that you have that creates a really great lit scene, no matter what the scenario is, if it's drama or romance? Like what is that higher level goal that you're trying to achieve that always creates a good lighting?
3 Wise.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's whenever you start with lighting a shot, I always, my first thing is I always like, okay, so let's say you have this scene and you have a goal of a certain mood that you want to set. I always look for reference images. That's always my first step, right? I go out and I find other images that embody the look that I want to go for. Reference image is so important. It's like the blueprint to a design or to a building, because it gives you a guideline. Because like if you're struggling with it and you're looking at it and you're like, this isn't feeling right, I'm not sure why, you can go back to your reference and pull elements from that into your work. But in terms of like what makes a well-lit shot, in any scenario, it goes back to the whys of lighting that I'm talking about. And I can only say that because Jasmine and I have been in real reviews, we've been in the room, and these are the things that people look for. Creating, like, again, translating that mood into the scene, so that, because lots of times when you're looking at a demo reel, there's no audio, there's no voices, there's no dialogue, you don't know what's talked about, everything's taken out of context, it's just a shot from the middle of a film. But that shouldn't matter. You should be able to still convey the emotion of the scene. And the second thing is is creating visual shaping. So like light to dark fall off areas over round objects. You can see behind us, if you're watching this on video, there's a flat white wall, but you can see variation of color going up. And if you look behind you, you've got a white ceiling. There's like a really bright patch there, and then the light kind of falls off. It goes from light to dark. So that's the way light flows in nature. Can you replicate that in your scene? And then the other one is, lots of these shots are very short, they're very quick. Can you direct the viewer's eye to the most important thing? Like if it's just my face from talking, am I holding something in my hand? Do you want to focus it there? Can you use the properties of composition and light to direct the viewer's eye? And then additionally, if you have character work, what we found is that if you can create a good connection to the character's eye, if you can make the eye look good, that's like that's next level, because we get that's a focus of our films a lot, and it's just how
big eyes,
the eyes,
lit well,
eye dings,
glossy, looks squishy.
Like squishy eye dings at 10 or 2. There's got to be separation between the pupil, sclera, and iris. The iris color has to match the surrounding shots. I know more about eye geometry, or like what makes an eye than I ever thought I ever would.
Well, they're so important from like our instincts to look at other people's eyes, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I'm putting together a portfolio for lighting right now, and I'm like, I want to apply to the big studios and hopefully get a job, what is it that they're looking for to see in my demo reel? Are there specific shots?
So there's a handful of things. So it's a combination of things. They want you to demonstrate a range of skills. They want to see and that's why we focus on the things that we focus on in our courses. Like they want to see if you can make a large landscape feel big. They want to see if you can light a character in the ways that I was just discussing. They want to see also if you can string together a few shots in a row, because we light in sequences, right? Mm-hmm. So can you match the look from shot to shot? Can the character's shirt color look the same from shot to shot? Can the light remain consistent? Can you light in a sequence of shots? And then one other bit of advice that I heard that I thought was interesting when you're looking at a demo reel was finding your individual artistic voice. So this actually came from a friend that is an animator. And it's so true in lighting too, but basically it's like, what about this shot could only have been done by you as an artist? Because there are definitely like a lot of good artists out there. These jobs are competitive. You know, like you said, it's our dream job. It's a competitive industry. But if you can do something and light a shot in a way that is uniquely yours and can feel different, and only through your experiences and your past and your aesthetic style can you make it look that way. And it sounds hard, but like once you're doing it, once you're in lighting and like you go through our process a lot, your voice starts to stand out a little bit and your experiences start to stand out a little bit. So you can develop your own style, which is something that's very cool on a demo reel.
Interesting. I never really thought of like a signature lighting style, because I think it's more, to me, it seems more obvious to like character animation or, you know, character design can be a little bit more signature, but that sounds like it totally is transferable to lighting too. I think that's really cool.
Well, our industry is getting more abstract all the time. Like we are, you know, like after the Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, I kind of unleashed.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
All the productions that are going to be coming out over the next 5 years are like, and there's the Netflix series whose name I always mess up. It's like Love, Death, and Robots or something. Yeah. And like that's got such a unique style too. It's like, and those are super popular. So
yeah. Oh, it's really cool and exciting. So what does the industry look like right now? Like what kind of career paths can you choose if you want to get into lighting? You mentioned feature film.
Yeah. I mean, if you want, there's the feature film, there's, you know, gaming, there's commercials, and like you kind of hinting at with all the streaming too, the industry is just getting bigger.
Yeah. Like Netflix just announced, I'm gonna get this number wrong, but I believe I think it was $17 billion in original content for the year 2020. Yeah. And so we've got, I mean, it's actually a really great time to get into the industry because we've got all the old standards, right? Like Blue Sky, Disney, Pixar, Sony, Illumination, they're all still there. We're all still making films. But now we're in the middle of like streaming wars, right? We've got Netflix and Apple TV and Disney Plus and all these
more animation,
and Amazon, and they're all like they're just like hungry for content. And so in the next couple of years, I think there's gonna be a little bit of a hiring boom to gather people. Either they'll build their own studios or they'll contract out to, like I think the Netflix series I was talking about, I think that Blur Studios did most of that. So like Blur had to ramp up their team in order to meet those needs. So and there's more online content than there ever was before. It's just like the amount of content that's available that's needed and people are still hungry for it is going to cause a huge rush on jobs.
I don't actually know, but when you're in a studio, what are the different roles that you can have as a lighting artist? Like senior lighting artist, like is there somebody who focuses only on character lighting and somebody who only does background lighting, or is it you're doing all those things?
Yeah, I mean, each studio is different, so I can't speak to every studio, but in general, most studios, there is no, for lighting at least, there is no specific only character lighting, only environment lighting, because it's all in one scene, right? And usually the hierarchy it starts as a junior lighter, senior lighter, and leads is like and the leads would probably be the ones leading the sequence, like doing the master rig and the master lighting, and then the other lighters are kind of doing shot lighting for that same sequence, and that's a general hierarchy of lighting.
So like
Okay.
as a shot lighter, you would inherit the lighting rig from the master lighter and like work to match his or her shots. But like Jasmine said, there's different ways of doing it. Like I know Pixar on Incredibles 2, I think Toy Story 4, they did it where it's like they would just have a couple artists work for like the entire film on one sequence. So they would light like all the shots in one sequence. Versus like Jasmine and I that just finished Spies in Disguise, we were lighting on a bunch of different sequences throughout the movie as part of teams. So like we would be with a group of lighters working on one collective thing for a few months and then move on to the next thing.
Gotcha. And I'm just curious, in the process of actually lighting a scene, do you get the scene when all the animation and everything else in shot is already kind of figured out? Like you're one of the last stages?
Yes, ideally. There's always
Yeah.
things in the back in animation and
Yeah.
other departments, but yeah, we are the last stage
Mhm.
of the pipeline. It goes. I mean, if you want to roughly go, it's modeling, rigging. Well, I'm gonna miss like the layout.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's like little layout.
Previs, design, story, like all these.
Okay, I missed all that. I apologize. We go through all of it.
No.
Okay, lighting's the only thing that matters.
So, like, yeah, you got modeling, rigging, animation, materials, effects, and then lighting. And that's when lighting, we get it all together. And it's our job to kind of pull all the elements together, the effects elements, everything into one frame. And then you have the lighting to compositing to stereo. Stereo is the last for our studio. At least.
Yeah, because after the lighting look is established, then they render the left and right eyes of that shot and make it, and then they stereoify it from there.
Nice. I'm just thinking maybe as we wrap up, you can just talk a little bit about what's next for the Academy. I know you just went through a beautiful redesign. It looks amazing, by the way.
Thank you. That was all Jasmine. So we recently relaunched as the Academy of Animated Art. For years we've been doing lighting training, and now we're looking to expand it a little bit. We have, we want to make sure to be a place that not only people can come and get a job as a lighter, but really any role within the animation field. So we want a place where everyone can come together, whether you're an animator, rigging artist, modeler, where you can come together, you can learn, you can collaborate, you can make some beautiful images, and you can get the knowledge and training and assets that you need to be competitive in the industry.
Yep. Yeah, and we have a lot of future, mentorships, like a big thing for our past students have said the best thing that they've gotten out of previously TDU, now Academy of Animated Art, is the professional feedback and the mentorship. And we have listened to them, and we are moving forward, are definitely going to help people get that mentorship in other aspects as well from professionals in the industry. And I think it's going to be really powerful.
Yeah.
Nice.
And like right now, because Jasmine and I've been in the industry for so long, we've been fortunate to have met some incredible people and made some incredible connections. And like right now we're working, it's not even on the site yet, but we're beta testing one-on-one mentorship with some animation. And our first person that we're using is she's a friend of mine that I went to school with. Her name is Becky Tower. She's the department supervisor of animation at Pixar. And so she is, right now we're beta testing. She's doing one-on-one mentorship with 2 students a month. We don't really, like I said, it's not even on the site yet. We just reached out to our existing students who are interested in just testing something. So if you're listening to this and you're curious about that, just feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to get that set up for you.
That sounds like a super great opportunity. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your journeys or lighting or the school or anything else?
I mean, just know that we have been, like, if you're listening to this and you're interested in lighting, but you don't think that you're good enough, or you're unsure of your work, and just know that you're not alone, that we've been there. We're exactly where you are, where this job feels like a far off dream, and there's like, you don't know how you're going to get there. So if you're feeling like that, we built a place where you can go and meet with us and talk to us and work with us, and we can help share our experience with you and guide you on your own path from where you are today the lighting on animated film industry. And yeah, and we're here to help. We're here to help you in any way that we can.
Yeah, and it
Nice.
works.
Yeah, like I said, we've got a couple hundred. I think we're up to over 300 students that we've trained now, and we've got a ton of success stories from it. So we're confident that this isn't a theoretical system that might kind of sort of work. Like we are. It's a proven system that's worked for a lot of people in the past, and we're from all different backgrounds. So no matter where you are, where you're coming from, we're sure this can work for you too.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything about your experience in the school. It's been really cool listening. I need to do a lot more research into lighting because it's something that I haven't worked at all with yet. So
That's great. We have we'll have a course for you then.
see you there. Yeah. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you're interested in following or getting in touch with Jasmine and Michael, you can do so by heading on over to their Academy website, which is academyofanimatedart.com. And if you're specifically interested in lighting, they have an amazing free ebook called The Insider Secrets for a Successful Demo Reel. I definitely recommend giving that a look. It's right on their front page, so make sure you check that out too. And that's all for now. So thanks so much for listening and take care. Bye.